Good morning, students, or afternoon, or evening. Whatever time you're viewing this is great. I want to talk to you about what the plan is for US History B for this week, the week of April 20th. So, let us dive in. Last week of April 13th, you participated in an online discussion comparing and contrasting COVID-19 and how the United States is responding to this current pandemic with the so-called Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. And then I sent you some follow-along information as well last week that I thought was pretty interesting. So optional, but if you want to check that out as well, it's in your Canvas inbox. You also watched 2 video lectures from me to kick off our current unit, which is the question for this unit is, what was the impact of World War II on Mexican Americans? So you watched 2 video lectures, you followed along and maybe took some notes in Google Slides, and this week you're going to continue building your understanding of how World War II affected Mexican Americans, their identity, their experience, the kind of complex relationship between the United States and Mexico by watching the Harvest of Loneliness documentary about the Bracero program. And I noticed that several of you, actually many of you, have already watched that, which is awesome. But if you haven't, that's also fine, because you're going to do that today, or this week rather. So you'll click on Harvest of Loneliness, Bracero documentary. You can see here, April 24th, the end of the week, is when I would like you to watch it by. So you should watch this documentary via Edpuzzle. And you will have to sign up with your school email address, or whatever email address you want. It's really easy. It is so simple, even a Ms. Price could figure it out. So I'm confident that you can. However, let's say you tried like 3 times. You just cannot figure out how to make it work. Are you sure you tried 3 times? Okay, fine. I mostly trust you. In that case, you can watch it on YouTube. But I really want you to try watching it via Edpuzzle. And here's what's going to look like. So you'll click on this link. It'll prompt you, most likely, unless you already have an account through another class, to register. And then it'll take you here to this documentary. And you'll click play. It'll be silent for a moment.
This is Salvador Ballesteros, 40 years old.
What? Why is it stopping? Good question. Because you have your very first open-ended question. Why did the United States start the Bracero program? Now, you haven't learned about that from this film. However, you did learn about why the United States started the Bracero program when you watched the video lecture that I made for you and went through those Google Slides. So I just want you to refresh your memory. You'll answer that. I'm not going to tell you the answer because you just, well, first of all, you could always Google stuff. I mean, you can do that. But I would rather you watch the documentary or the video lecture I made for you. So you'll answer, then you'll click play again, and then I can see your answers. So it's a really helpful way for me to follow along with your thinking. All right, so you're doing that this week. Then you are learning about the Zoot Suit riots. So you're going to make copies of the Google Slides that I created for you about the Zoot Suit riots. So when you click on this Google Slides for your notes, Zoot Suit riots, you'll see that's also due on Friday, April 24th, or I'd like you to do it by Friday. And there's a video lecture that I made for you. The first 3 minutes is just a review about how you actually access this information. So the video lecture itself is like 12 minutes long, so it starts around 3 minutes. And you're going to create copies of these Google Slides. I know that several students, maybe actually just a lot of students, had trouble creating their own copies of the Google Slides. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So click on this link, click, and now it will take you to Google Slides that look like this. And you can see it says view only. That's intentional. Not that I don't care about your thoughts, but I can't have 120 students all editing from the same document. Some of you will be tempted to say request edit access because Ms. Price, you told us to take notes. And you're totally right about that. But again, 120 of you cannot all be editing the same document because that would be madness. Instead, you will click File, Make a Copy, Entire Presentation. We'll do that one more time. You're going to be tempted to say, I would like to edit this, Ms. Price. And I will say, access denied. So instead, you'll go File, Make a Copy, Entire Presentation. Oh, great. Copy of Zoot Suit Riots. I'm going to ask you to change it so that it's your name. So, Ms. Price, Zoot Suit Riots. Okay, I'm going to save that in my drive. Excellent. Click OK. Perfect. Now you can add speaker notes. Voila. So you'll watch this video, you'll add speaker notes. I would recommend maybe even just have 2 windows open. So, oops. Oh my gosh, you can see the horrifying state of my desktop. It's so messy. Don't tell anyone. And you could just like keep this little window open and this one open.
43, and they are about your
Oh my
age.
gosh, so trippy.
16, 17.
2 Ms. Prices talking at the same time. That is too many. But as you watch that, take notes. Ooh, interesting. Bloop-a-doop-a-doo. All right. So you're going to watch the Bracero documentary. You're going to watch this 12-minute, it says 15-minute, but that's just because there's a lot of explanation at the beginning. We can skip through. 12-minute video lecture about the Zoot Suit Riots. And then the last thing that I want you to do for this week is, again, you can see April 24th is when I would like you to have it done, is the Zoot Suit Riots reading and analysis. Click. Oh, boop, boop, boop. Wait, oh no, sorry, I'm not organized. There we go. Reading and analysis. So one of the things that you're going to have the option of doing next week is the Socratic or other demonstrations of your thinking. So to help you with your final assessment for this unit, you're going to read 2 primary sources about the Zoot Suit Riots. It will prompt you to make a copy. And then here you have 2 newspaper articles from the time of the Zoot Suit Riots, 1943, that cover the same event and come to different conclusions based on who wrote them and who the audience is. This is pretty simple reading analysis. You're going to complete this graphic organizer for both newspaper articles. The newspaper primarily for white US Americans, and then the newspaper is primarily for Mexican Americans in Los Angeles. You're going to compare, contrast. Okay, so that's it for this week. Next week, you're going to have a summative assessment about what you learned and what you're thinking in terms of the impact of World War II on Mexican Americans. And if you want to jump ahead and look at that, by all means, you can do that, of course. But you'll have 3 options. You can participate in a Zoom Socratic. You can record yourself thinking through some questions and chatting with me, but just like by yourself. Or you can do a written reflection. So those are the 3 things that you'll do, or you'll do one of those 3 things next week. Alrighty. I think that's it. Yeah. Hope you're all doing well and that you enjoyed the sunshine this weekend. And I'll see you around. I almost forgot to tell you something. Oh no, wait a minute. Can you see my face? Yes, you can. Okay, I almost forgot to tell you something so important that I learned recently. So I've been listening to a lot of coverage about the 2020 census, which, as you probably know, hopefully know, is happening right now. Every 10 years, the United States, by constitutional mandate, is required to count every human being in the United States. The census is so awesome. Oh my God, I love the census. Although, also complicated and anyway. But I think the census is super important. If you haven't already, make sure that your family has taken the census. You can complete it online up until July 31st. It determines funding. That's probably the most important part. It determines funding. It also determines funding for public services, which we all use. And it also determines the number of congressional seats, like the number of congressional representatives that we get. So, very important. Do that. Make sure that you complete the census. But the thing that I wanted to tell you, in addition to that, is that I was listening to the history of the census, and one of the things that I learned is that there's only been one time in US history where people had the option of checking when, so in the census, you're asked what race you are. It's like probably the only question that has been consistent since the start of the census. And the options, like what you can check, have changed over the last 200 years. And it's really interesting and very informative to look and see what are the different racial categories that the United States federal government considers to be racial categories. Fascinating, because race is socially constructed. But anyway, so there's only been 1 year when people could check that their racial identity was Mexican. And that was in 1930. And the reason, so 1930, you could, if you were Mexican American or Mexican living in the United States, you would check the box that said Mexican, probably. But then that went away in 1940, and it didn't exist in 1920, and it has not been a specific, like, just check this box category since then. And the reason why in 1930 that was an option is because, as we learned about the historic context, in the 1930s, how many people were migrating from Mexico to the United States? Like, hardly any, because the US basically just shut down migration from Mexico and from a lot of the world, but because of the National Origins Act in 1924. So the reason that the United States government decided to put this box that said Mexican on it, on the census, is because they didn't want Mexican Americans to check the box that said Indigenous or Native American. Super interesting. And definitely gives us a lot to think about in terms of what it means to be Mexican American versus Native American, ways in which the census has historically been used as a way to, well, how do I put this accurately, but also mildly? Well, as a way to just like overtly discriminate against people. So, fascinating. History matters, but also taking the census matters. So please do that. Okay, that's it for me.